This is Oscar Bevis for the Stomping Ground, powered by Wow Hydrate and available on DAZN from the Tower of Power to Boxing Booth. People are going to start talking, Callum.
Yeah, we've done Dublin, the Strand yesterday, Central London, and here we are today in wonderful Surrey at the Boxing Booth gym. I've got to say, impressive setup here. I've rarely seen so many bags in so many square metres in my life. A lot of heavy bags as well. Very impressive. Great gym.
That's a statement I believe a few people might go against.
Yeah, I guess they would. Yeah, you're fast. I didn't pick that one up. Comments. The boxing bags are very good.
Can I ask you one question? So you've done a lot of media, of course, in Dublin. Done a bit yesterday, 5 or 6, 7 different interviews. You'll do the same today. How do you keep that energy?
I think it's just talking about things you like talking about, you know. And I do like to talk occasionally. But no, everyone's, you know, yesterday was all about Harlem. Today's all about Josh Kelly. And, you know, there we have already the fight very much in our sights on that, not massive, but ginormous, historic Riyadh season card at Wembley Stadium with 190,000 people on September the 21st. So yeah, it's getting closer and closer. We've obviously had Dublin last week, we've got Newcastle next week, and then the week after we go to Wembley Stadium with this fight, and it's I don't know. It feels a million miles away since we had the press conference, and now it feels like, crikey, we're almost there, aren't we? You know, the countdown's almost over, and there's so many great fights that night. Starting obviously at the very top of the bill with AJ Dubois. But Josh Kelly, Liam Smith is the one that is going to steal the thunder. I was going to say under the towers, but those towers are long gone. Under the arch of Wembley Stadium. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those fights that has all the storylines to it from both sides. From Liam's side, obviously coming off the back of the Eubank fights last year. And for Josh, after all the talk, you know, within the industry about Josh Kelly since well over 10 years ago. And it's sort of all built up to this moment now of the lights, the big lights, the massive lights of Wembley Stadium. And it's his time to shine. And shine is what he's going to do.
Yeah, you've been telling me since the press conference, which does feel like quite a while ago, that this is going to be the one to steal the show. I've got to ask you, we spoke yesterday quickly about Froch Kessler, and like we said, you've been involved in so many big fights. How nervous do you get?
See Calzaghe versus, there's a picture in the background here of
Joe Calzaghe
for Kessler versus Calzaghe. Yeah, that was a great fight as well.
Yeah, brilliant fight. And the fights you've been involved in, I just want to know, how nervous do you get for the fighter that you're representing? Because this is, I don't want to say do or die for Josh, but this is an opportunity that skyrockets him to a new level. So how nervous will you be for Josh Kelly when that first bell rings? How will you feel?
Well, over the years, I've managed to control the nerves more. And you know, there's enough memes of me and my mouth, which is a nervous tick, let me tell you. And the memes, though, speak for themselves. I get very, very nervous, and you know, especially when I'm close with a fight, and I really get on with Josh outside the ring as well. He always beats me at golf, unfortunately, but you know, he's a real character, and he's someone that's really enjoyable to work with. He is what he is. He rolls his sleeves up and gets to work, you know, and he's enjoying himself at the moment. When I say enjoying himself, I mean he's in some nick. I think probably the best nick of his career. You have to answer that himself, but he looks phenomenal, and you can tell he's put a lot into this very, very long waiting period, and that's where the sport, when you go from being, you know, sort of breaking through that domestic level, obviously the big fight with Troy Williamson, it's a while back now. He's had a couple of run-outs last year against top 15s in the world. But this is now the next level. And it's that time between it's that breakthrough fight, I say, it's into the mainstream, and to wait for that right opportunity. And actually, the Liam Smith fight, like I said in a few interviews, is it was there, it was being made, then it didn't get made. And then, luckily, godsend, the Riyadh season card turned up. They're very keen to get this on, and quite rightly so. It's a terrific fight. Like I said, I think it's a show stealer. And you see that Josh has bided his time. He's waited patiently, but he's going to take this with both hands and feet.
Has he ever showed any signs of frustration at not landing a mega fight? Because he's had big fights, but obviously this is a mega fight.
Yeah, I think that he's in a very... He's matured very well, and I think him and Adam have got a very good take on the game. And Adam, what I just said is something that me and Adam have discussed many times. It's about getting that right opportunity.
So have other ones been thrown the way of Josh Kelly that perhaps weren't suitable at the time?
But don't forget, we're in a position with number one WBO. So we were, what was it now, 3-4 months ago, a bit more, Easter time, there was a situation with Terence Crawford. So we had a chat with the WBO. Obviously, we were in a position to we don't want to force something on Terence Crawford, are you? But we were in a position as number one, and we spoke to the WBO and said, well, if that becomes available, we'd very much like to take that shot. Went to Madrimov then with the WBA, of course, but it very well could have ended up being Crawford Kelly, and Adam and Josh were chomping at the bit of that. You saw their comments on social media and at media events. There was no shying away from that. So they're up for the biggest names. But I always say, and I'm a big fan of domestic blockbusters, especially in the UK. It's made for it. It's the boxing culture. I'm not saying world titles are not important, but the domestic big blockbusters is what makes the names. It's what then attracts the world titles to you, or the world title shots. They won't win them for you, but and that's where we're at. This is a real domestic blockbuster. It's a standalone main event in its own right. I don't think anyone would disagree with me on that. Would fill any indoor arena in the country, but at the same time, it's coming at exactly the right time.
Yeah. If I can ask you one more on Josh Kelly versus Liam Smith, how does Josh Kelly win that fight?
I can't give away a game plan because I don't know what the game plan is, but I think he's got this fantastic, almost American style, and I think that keep him at range and Liam's very good on the inside. Liam's a top operator. Let's not break any bones about that. He's an absolutely top operator, and I think Josh has to impose his style on him. Whatever that style is on the evening, I'll leave that down to the Dark Lord Adam Booth. But one thing's for sure, they've got that sync between trainer and athlete, where it's like a sixth sense. So they are really in sync. So the game plan that you see in the ring will be the game plan that has been put together between them. And often you see fighters with new trainers and new things going on, and they'll try what the corner's telling them, but they'll go back to what they know best. Very often when something's not working and there's frustration from the corner, that doesn't exist between Adam Booth and Josh Kelly. It's like a Yoda Luke Skywalker sort of feel to it.
Yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be a banger
Adam,
of a fight.
I didn't just call you Yoda, by the way.
I'll tell him that when he comes in here. No, honestly, a banger of a fight, and I can't wait. Really, really tasty matchup. And like you said, the domestic ones are the best ones.
They are, because it was, they're talking about some sparring session that happened between them, and
we love a sparring story.
We love a sparring story, but I don't really get too involved in them because mostly I haven't actually been there for them. So, but they'll both know what they're talking about, and so will the coaches that were there, and so will the people in the gym that were there. Sometimes they're much about nothing. Sometimes they'll both know what that is.
Yeah, well, I suppose Joshua Dubois, part of the big storyline, is also built on sparring, so I get exactly where you're coming from. Eddie Hearn versus Simon Jordan, did you catch any of that?
I didn't know. What happened there? I saw that he went on Jordan and was going on Jordan, but I didn't. Normally something comes out of it, but I didn't see too much about it. What happened? Was it so? I'm also not. I haven't got my finger on the pulse on some of these social media things. So tell me, talk to me.
Well, there's one point there's one point that Simon Jordan made that I want to talk about. But just before that, your experience with Simon Jordan. I know he's a man you would have come across. How's that been? Because I know him and Eddie have seemed to butt heads of recent. But what's your experience been like with Simon Jordan?
You want to take me back to a dark place here, don't you? I mean, obviously the week of Eubank Ben, the original week.
Yeah.
I went on Simon Jordan's show, so it's what it is. I mean, he's on the one hand, Simon knows quite a lot. I'll give him that, but at the same time, he's also very clever at making things go viral in that space, and you're not going to do that by asking boring questions, are you? You're not going to do that by laying down, are you? I think Simon will agree to that. So I don't know what did happen. I'm teeing myself up for something really nasty. What happened between them?
Well, no,
got me curious now. Tell me what the
Simon
news is.
Simon covered the Conor Ben situation, of course. Questioned
Anthony
Joshua's shin.
They're still on that. I thought they got settled last year between the pair
I know,
of them.
they've had that conversation about 18 months ago and again now.
Yeah.
But there's one point that Simon made that I want to talk about. He called promoters glorified agents and said that he believes His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh is trying to become the establishment, and that at some point he might look at Eddie Hearn, yourself, Frank Warren, Ben Shalom, and go, you guys are no longer needed because I can talk directly to the fighters. Just your take on that view. I know glorified agents is a little bit harsh.
I've always said, I don't really understand the word promoter. I think that every promoter is a bit different. I think when you talk about Simon and Eddie, I mean, Eddie's strength since day one has been social media. He's very, very good at using that. He was the first in as well. So he's done that fantastically. Let's face it, Eddie's very, very funny and entertaining when you watch him. He's just very good at it. I remember years ago he said, I'm going to be doing Saturday Night Live one day. I believe that. I really believe. I believe he's fantastic at what he does. Frank Warren over the years, great matchmaker. So the skills of look at Kawasaki's career, look at Ricky Hatton's career, look at Nassim's career. Yes, they all, I think, parted ways at some stage with Frank, but they'll look back now and they'll see the choices that Frank made for Kawasaki with Jeff Lacey, for Ricky Hatton with Costa Zhu, for Naz for a lot of fights where they were the right choices. And they might have had their arguments later, but none of them will say that they were badly matched. They were matched impeccably. Jeff Lacey wasn't all he was cracked up to be. He was built as the Apollo Creed from America. Costa Zhu had certainly seen a few better days, but was still the absolute name and it wasn't over the hill, but it was exactly the right time to fight him. And Naz had some guys who were top world champions, but they suited exactly his capabilities. Later on in his career, Barrera certainly didn't. So Frank's strength has always been in that area. I've always been trying to discover new media concepts, whether it's been the World Boxing Super Series. Before that, when I was, 27, 28 years old, I did something called the World Boxing Super 6 with Showtime. It was the biggest tournament in the world. I was in my late 20s. So I've always tried to look above and beyond how he can work as a media product. That sounds really boring now, I'm sorry. I've got more exciting things I do as well, out of hours. But so I think everyone's got a little bit of a different thing. You can all label them as promoters, that's what we ultimately are. And sometimes we act as agents as well. So I don't know, I'm not trying to sit on the fence here. I'm just saying, I don't think you can just replace what we do on a day in, day out for the last, for me, the last 3 decades, and Frank for the last 4 or 5 decades, and Eddie for the last 2 decades. So I think there's, I think that's very harsh, but at the end of the day, everyone can have an opinion, and that's what it is. I think at the same time, working together, as I've always said, and a lot of the concepts that I've brought to boxing, it has been about working together. no big fight involves one promoter. I can't think of one in recent history where it involves one promoter. It doesn't. Makes boxing needs to work together to deliver big fights. And I think the most positive thing that His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh has done is bring promoters working together to make the big fights and saying, right, you have to work together. And you can see he rules it with a degree of an iron fist, and that's what you need to do. And he's done that fantastically. I think that's one part that's been overlooked. It's not just about splashing the cash. It's about having a vision and getting people to work together in boxing. That is not easy. And people might think that, oh, when there's money there, it's easy. It's not easy. It's not easy. I know from the World Boxing Super Series, it was extremely difficult. We had loads of money to spend on the tournaments, but it was actually getting people together for it. And he's done a fantastic job on that. And I think that gets a little bit overlooked because it's, you say, oh, you got the money, you can put together fantasy cards. Yeah, but you still got to make it actually happen.
Yeah, and I guess there's a world outside of Riyadh season as well. I know Eddie yesterday in the interview, I used the word ecosystem. If you take Riyadh season out, His Excellency is not going to be there promoting Charlie Edwards versus Thomas Asomba. He's not going to be there promoting Johnny Fisher at the Copper Box the day after. So there is a world outside of our 7-8 Riyadh season shows.
Like I said, I mean, we're Dublin last week, Newcastle the week after, then we go at Wembley Stadium with Kelly versus Smith. The week after, on a Friday night, I'll be sitting with 1,500 people at the York Hall, live on Channel 5, trying to put on an excellent night of domestic free-to-air television boxing. And that's very important because that's something that feeds into, obviously, the highest pinnacle at the moment, and that has to be seen as the Riyadh season. That's sort of like to get onto those cards. But at the same time, an ecosystem will always work with inspiration and I want to get onto that. And that's a path. You don't just play in the Premier League or the Champions League. So when you start, you don't just say, well, I'll sign up for a bit in the Premier League. Well, if it is, just tell me where, because I've still got 2 left feet. Maybe
I reckon you could slot in that Tottenham midfield.
Yeah, I was just about to say, thanks for that. That was an underhanded compliment there. But no, I mean, so we always, aspiration is what boxing's about. It's what makes people pick up the gloves for the first time. They want to be Muhammad Ali. They want to be Tyson Fury, Anthony Joshua, Josh Kelly. That's what that's what they want to be from. I'm mentioning Josh Kelly in that form because in Sunderland, where he's originally from, the inspiration to the northeast that Josh Kelly will bring in his career. That's the motivational factor. And Riyadh season is a massive part of that now because that is. Like, oh, I want to be on that card in Riyadh. In the 80s, it was, by the way, I want to be on that card in Vegas. So it's now Las Riyadh. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I like that, Las Riyadh. One more question. They mentioned the potential Saudi Boxing League. What have you heard or been told or about the potential?
I've heard that it's something that they're looking at. I don't really know much more about it. I mean, a league sounds fantastic. Again, going back to what we did with World Boxing Super Series was more of a tournament than a league. Super 6 back in 2008, that was a little league. And that, I thought, was my favourite way of doing it because you get names in as well. If you're asking the best to fight the best and you're out, it's tough to get the best in. I remember that at the time. And, a league would be fantastic. But boxing is a huge amount of numbers of people doing it. So it's then a question of how do you sort the qualification out? How does it work in terms of rankings? Do they make your own rankings? Do you work with the ABCs? Do you not? So there's but it's obviously. It's exactly my cup of tea, isn't it? It's exactly what I've been preaching for many years. So music to my ears if it pulls off, because something where the people on the street can identify with and say, right, okay, I get that. They don't understand the words interim and regular and champion in recess and emeritus champion and some of the other names we've had over the years. We get it in the boxing world, we get it, but at the end of the day, that's not really the idea that the boxing world gets it, because we sort of always end up believing our own bullshit. It's always better to try and get the man on the street to understand it, you know.